Okay, we're live, but we got to let it breathe just for a heartbeat, just for a very brief moment as I cough into your ear. It wasn't a cough, it was more of like a clearing of the throat type thing, frog in my throat. But we're just bringing on the meta folks, and we're good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast, the aftermath episode. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me is my co-host and fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zach, I'm like, yo, Greg Dulcich, they cut him. You're like, what? You were kind of like stunned for about 39 milliseconds. No, it's doing it again, isn't it? But give us your gut reaction. The Broncos let him go. What the Sam Hill?
Yeah, I mean, you broke the news to me. I was away from my phone for a second, and it turns out the Broncos finally said goodbye to what we could say now was a third-round bust in Greg Jacob Butt Dulcich. They had other players ahead of him, Chad, that were performing. Dulcich was supposed to be the Joker, never was, and he's been a healthy scratch since week 5. The writing's been on the wall. I can't say I was surprised for longer than the 39 nanoseconds.
I'm just really fast. Sorry, guys. I hate to keep you on hold, but I have to do this really fast because I have all the quick logins and stuff. But I'm posting the stream to from the Mile High Huddle pod Facebook to the main one. We are live. Okay, sorry guys. That'll be the last we have to worry about that tonight. Okay, so it should come as no surprise. Honestly, Zach, if there's a surprise to be had, it's that why did it take so long? How many straight games was he a healthy scratch? I mean, and who knows? Maybe they wouldn't have done this move, Zach, if they weren't so up against it with a couple of roster spots
Exactly.
needing to create with the return of Josh Reynolds and it sounds like Drew Sanders, but at the very least, Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, I'd rather get a guy who's going to actually perform when he's on the field and stay healthy and help out the offense than continue to pine away for the hypothetical and Greg Dulcich. It was a nice shot in the dark to take a chance. You wish it wasn't a third-round gamble, but that's what the draft is, Chad. It's a crapshoot. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But tight end has to be high up on the Broncos' priority list in 2025.
Dude, I can only imagine what this offense with Bo would look like if you had a good tight end. Like Adam Troutman, he's a good try-hard guy. He's painfully slow to watch run routes. And there was that one miscue yesterday. I think it was Trent Green opined, that's a reps thing where he stopped short and it almost got picked off because he didn't Bo was throwing him into the future a little bit and he just stopped the route. Little things like that. And I'm going, man, you just need to get a guy who doesn't have to think so much about that kind of stuff. Somebody who's just a force to be reckoned with. You might have to wait a little while, Zach. It's probably not going to be Lucas Kroll. We know it's not going to be Adam Troutman. It's definitely not going to be Nate Adkins, although props to him. 2 touchdowns this season. Good for you, bro. But yeah, that's got to be high up on the list. I'm thinking, and hey, Broncos, they're stacking up their draft picks for 2025. I'm thinking one of those first 3 picks going to be a tight end.
They signed Donald Parham like before the season, never did anything with him, Chad, on the practice squad. I'd like to see him get at least a look. I mean, if anything, a couple reps would be better than what Greg Dulcich wasn't offering. But you're right. It's got to be a major priority.
The Papa Bear, David McElrath in the house early with a super chat. Thank you, brother. So good to see you back-to-back nights. I mean, let's face it. With David, it's every night. But thank you for being here again, my friend. He says, great evening, Broncos Country. I love it. Hashtag 10 and 7. Let's go, Bo. MHH for life. Buckham times 3 like this, right? Me and David are twinners tonight. Denver Broncos for life. Knicks for 6. And then his comment, Denver Broncos are taking the NFL to new levels. I mean, Zach, he's not lying. So many different little stats keep coming out on Bo Nix that it's like, I struggle to actually keep up with them, and I don't envy the Broncos PR department. I'm looking down because I'm pulling up the last one. If Instagram will work, I'll find it here in a second. There we go. Take me to where I need to go. Well, I'll grab Sam Bam while this is loading. Sam, love you, bro. Thank you for your patience. He says, evening, guys. Happy Victory Monday. Nice to finally sweep the Raiders for the first time since 14 The Browns are up next Monday. Then the really late bye week go Broncos 10-7, maybe 11-6. I agree. So let me give you a quick list here, Zach and everybody. Of the quarterbacks with 20 plus total touchdowns and 2 or fewer turnovers in a 10-game span within a NFL season. Okay. So not rookies, like ever. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. Oh, and this cat named Bo Nix.
It's like you said, every week. I just pulled up one. Bo Nix is only the second rookie in NFL history to throw at least 8 touchdowns, 0 picks in a 3-game span. The only other player to do that was Dak Prescott in 2016, and he won ORoY. Bo Nix also, Chad, set the single-season franchise record for most passing touchdowns by a rookie, eclipsing Marlon Briscoe's record, 56-year-old record. And he also became the first rookie in team history to eclipse 2,500 passing yards in a single season. And it might not be big barometers because they haven't had much success with rookie quarterbacks, but Bo Nix is just blowing them all away, Chad, one by one by one by one.
Cullen, I mean, exactly. Cullen, hold on. As evidenced by Bo Nix being the first Broncos rookie quarterback to be named the opening game starter since John Elway in 1983, it not only shows you the Broncos have struggled to find young franchise guys, but just simply that, you know, the ones that they have had, they don't play right away. And if when they do finally play, the best we've seen is that 4-1 start from Drew Lock, which unfortunately didn't end well. Cullen, brother, thank you for your patience. He says it's been like pulling teeth to get people to put some respect on Bo's name. Respect my name. Respect me. What's that from, dude? Have you ever seen the Reno 911 movie?
Mm-mm.
Scott, you've seen Reno 911? Oh, man, there's this great scene. This is a small, stupid little anecdote. There'll be like 0.01% of our audience. They'll be like, yeah, I get that anecdote. But the hit guy that's got the alligator in his backyard and he slaps the alligator that's in his pool. He's like, see, and they're all freaking out watching him do it, thinking he's going to get munched. And he's like, it's because he respect me. All right. It's been like pulling teeth. Bo and Moronk, dude, thank you, bro. So good to see you. MHH Podcast Aftermath. Go Bo Broncos. I got to finish up here with Cullen. I hope they keep sleeping, but damn, you have to be blind not to be buying. I'm seeing the scales falling off everybody's eyes now, Zach.
I think it was Damian Woody, former Pro Bowler for the Jets and the Patriots, said if he was doing a 2024 redraft, he would take Bo Nix #1 overall. I might write that up as a story, but you're starting to see the dam breaking. And by the dam, I mean the media narratives about Bo Nix. Well, along with the records, Chad, he's shedding those one by one by one every week.
A proud Zennial 81 in the house again. I love it. Thank you, my friend. Bo in Crosby's face is the best moment of the season so far. Turning point. Fire for our organization. Loving this fighting attitude. Hashtag Bo knows. Nix for 6. MHH for life. Yeah, he would get in Crosby's face. There's that great meme going around. You can find it on my Twitter of Bo Nix with the eyes on Wilson, right, of the Raiders, and you see him mouthing something, and I've seen people trying to like lip read, but he's got that mouth guard in while he's doing it, so the lips are a little encumbered, so there's like you can't quite clearly make out what he's saying, but he was fired up, dude. You know what? Shawn Payton, Zach, was salty at the podium slightly. I would say it was a slightly more salty Shawn Payton relative to kind of rubbing it in on the opponent in a victory. Bo Nix, though, Zach, he was like, yo, they're a good team, great opponent. I'm happy for the guys that we got that, monkey off our back. All class.
Yeah, and we talked about this yesterday. Bo Nix's confidence and his attitude coming out. He wouldn't have done that. We wouldn't have gotten that meme in week 1, week 2. He had to find himself as a quarterback and go through those growing pains and go through those struggles and come out the other side, and he did just that. Don't forget in the first matchup what Max Crosby screamed to Bo Nix at the line of scrimmage. Speak up, Bo, they can't hear you. Well, they can hear Bo now, and they can hear the fact that the Broncos swept the Raiders this season.
Speaking of sweeping, the odds for Bo Nix becoming Offensive Rookie of the Year are sweeping upwards, and yet, Zach, he is still an underdog. He's still not quite the favorite, We're going to dive into that here in just a second. But when we're talking about underdogs, guys, Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog. With their pick'em game, you could win money by making entries with your favorite players. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower. It's not rocket science. That make it really easy. On 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Think of it. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog.
And check this out. With their champs game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Like, for example, will Bo Nix have a higher or lower than 220.5 passing yards this coming week? Every dog deserves a second chance. And with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
If you were like me last week, you took the higher on that particular Bo Nix metric, 220.5 passing yards, and cashed in. Download the Underdog app today. Use our code MHuddle to get up to 1,000 bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app today. Use our code MHuddle for up to $1,000 in bonus cash out of the gates. Every player, every touchdown. Just select higher or lower on Underdog.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8 Hope NY or text Hope NY.
All right. Let's talk about those underdog odds before we get. I see Phil McLaughlin's checking in. Well, he's on the subject. So let's grab Phil. What's up, Phil? It says, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. By the way, Phil, I'm glad you found us on Facebook. Once again, problems trying to connect to the main account. So I'm glad you found us. I heard Shannon Sharp and crew name Bo Nix Rookie of the Year, and he's finally getting some respect. Hashtag Buckham MHH for life, Broncos for life. So, Zach, this is according to the latest odds. All right. This is from SI, that's Sports Illustrated, SI Betting. They're citing DraftKings. And think of this. Just 2 weeks ago, Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders was the heavy favorite to win ORoY at minus 3,000 odds to Bo Nix chilling at plus 1,400. After week 12, Daniels now sits at just minus 35 with Nix at plus 110. So he is closing the gap. I would argue that yesterday should have been enough to officially close the gap, but you got to have a favorite. And even though the Commanders lost, Jaden Daniels, Zach put in a valiant effort toward the end and was, some explosive stuff happening there. So Bo Nix, though, Zach, it's on a razor's edge. And if you look, there's a great article here from Nick Kendall kind of breaking down the road ahead. And if you look at Bo Nix's road ahead relative to defenses and just overall quality of opponents, it's hard to, I don't offer gambling advice, but it's hard to bet against him being the ORoY.
Like you said, I don't know how the odds were uneven when Jaden Daniels couldn't beat Cooper Rush at home and a terrible Cowboys defense when you have all the momentum on your side for a potential playoff berth. It's nice that Nix is getting the shine. It's nice that he's in contention for ORoY, but if you ask him, he would just want the wins. He wants the Broncos to be a contender. He wants the Broncos to be a champion. And if they can get to the playoffs, then those accolades would come second.
And that's one of the things I love about Bo Nix is it's like every post-game podium when he's presented with some new, some new record or statistical milestone, he's like, yo, that's cool and all, but like, I'm just glad we got the win. Or even in a loss where he's being asked, hey, what are your thoughts on this? He's like, look, it's all about the win. It's about the collective. But real quick, as I pull up Eric Trickle's player grades, I'm seeing some questions about where things stand in the playoff seeding. Here's where it's at. According to the NFL.com playoff picture, the Broncos sit with a 2-game lead over the Miami Dolphins for the 7th and final seed in the AFC, with a 73% chance to make the playoffs, according to NFL.com. And Zach, if you look at Miami's road ahead, it's not as pretty, and they're 2 games behind the Broncos. So this game that's on right now, in which the Chargers currently got out to an early 7-0 lead, could have something to do with seeding relative to the Broncos standings, which, and I'm not sure of this because of the divisional stuff. So Scott, I'm roping you in on this question, but which of these opponents would be more fortuitous to win for the Broncos relative to seeding? Wouldn't it be the Ravens because of the AFC West stuff, Zach?
That's what I thought. I mean, you lost the head-to-head against the Chargers, so you want the Ravens to kind of even the gap there, and you have to assume they're going to win the division, because if they don't, the Steelers are in contention for a wild card, and they beat the Broncos head-to-head too. So it's very tricky, Chad. What it boils down to is the Broncos have to take care of business game by game by game, starting next Monday night against Cleveland, and if they continue doing that, then they will find themselves in the tournament in January.
But either way, as it stands right now, I mean, regardless of how Chargers-Ravens shakes out, 73% playoff probability for your Denver Broncos with 5 left to go. And we're getting to a point now, Zach, where we can kind of begin to settle in and trust what we're seeing. You know, when it was happening last year, the 5-game winning streak, Broncos got to 6-5 before they started to teeter. There was still that feeling in your gut like, oh, do I dare to buy in? Do I dare to believe? Even when it was starting to look pretty good for them relative to the playoff seeding, I don't have that feeling this time around. And not only that, Zach, but you're not looking at Detroit Lions. I'm trying to remember some of the other, final 5 or 6 opponents last year. It's a different team. And that's another thing Shawn Payton talked about at the podium yesterday. He's like, hey, the 2023 Broncos don't win that game yesterday at Allegiant Stadium. And he's like, look, I'll paraphrase him. He's like, I'm not trying to cast aspersions or hurt anyone's feelings that was on the 23 team, but this is a different team.
What they did have down the stretch in 23, though, was a letdown game against an inferior team in New England. And that's what I want exactly the Broncos to avoid. And I'm with you. And that's what I was thinking about the Dolphins when you were talking about the playoff seeding there. They, to me, are paper tigers. I don't really believe in Miami. I'm not worried about Miami. The Broncos seem legitimate. They can get a little bit of a running game. If they can clean up some penalty issues, they are a force to be reckoned with in the AFC. But it boils down to take care of the business and teams in front of you, and you should have no problems.
That's my biggest misgiving, if I'm being honest, Zach. Whether the running game, where is it? What the heck is going on? You're now more than 2 quarters into the season, and you're getting minus yardage from your RB1. Yeah. Like, that's unacceptable. And that's the only thing that gives me a modicum of alarm. Not to say that I think it really is going to, with the defenses they're poised to face, I don't think it's going to end up blowing up in their face, because you saw Bo Nix. I mean, Scott was talking about this on the Broncos for Breakfast this morning, like 1st and 20, boom, here's a dart for 22. You can overcome it to a point with these remaining opponents, Zach. But once you actually get to the playoffs, if you can't run the ball, those defenses are not the Raiders. I mean, and the Raiders were playing inspired football yesterday, let's face it. It was their Super Bowl. But still, that running game, Zach, if they don't get some answers on that soon, it's going to bite them.
It seems like it's kind of a blue ball situation every week, where we feel like it's going to break out and then it doesn't. We feel like it and then it doesn't. It seemed like it was set up for McLaughlin to go off yesterday, and then he got banged up and it threw the Broncos plan off. But one thing is certain in the backfield, Javonte Williams is not the guy. Not no more.
You just can't trust him. Another thing I'll cite Eric's grades article is just consistency. Because, Zach, we've had this conversation how many times before this season where we're throwing Williams under the bus, and then the next game he's got like 60 and 2 touchdowns, and you're going, what? It's a consistency thing, and it's not just on Williams. It's on the coaching, the play calling, the offensive line. So they have got to – and I'm hopeful, Zach, this is one of the fortuitous aspects, and then we're going to grab Kyle, of having your bye as deep into the season, pardon me, as it is for the Broncos is – oh, baby, you're going to get a full week to self-scout, diagnose, what are we missing here? Why can't we get this thing going? And hopefully dial it in, Zach, for the stretch run. Kyle, thank you, bro. It's great to see you tonight, big dog. He says, with Dulcich gone, do you see us drafting or signing a tight end or a receiver? Yes and yes. just not till 2025. I mean, they'll have their eyes peeled. They'll be watching the wire and stuff like that this season. But Zach, I see him drafting both next year.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do anything the rest of this season. It seems like they're pretty set with the guys they have. They didn't make any moves at the deadline. They didn't seem to be in on many guys like David Njoku or some of the other receivers that were being floated in trade rumors. But come the offseason, it should be the Broncos shopping list. It should be a rotation of receiver, tight end, running back, and offensive line. It should be all about building the nest around Bo Nix in 2025, Kyle.
Amen to that. Good to see you tonight, big dog. Thank you for the super chat. It means the world to us. Randy wants to know, is the problem Javonte or is it run blocking? Yes. But in all honesty, I got to point more toward the ball carrier in his case. Because, Zach, if you look at the other backs averages, okay, like yesterday wasn't the greatest example to lean on. But, I mean, McLaughlin averaged a healthy 6.3 in only 7 attempts, right? Even Estimate on 3 carries averaged 5 yards. Javonte's average was minus 0.3. He literally totaled on 8 carries. So 1 carry more, Zach, than the team's leading rusher, and he got minus 2 yards. It's a vision thing for Javonte, and that is exacerbated by, I think at times, Shawn Payton, he's got his script early on in the game. The Raiders, and he talked about it, how yesterday one of the things he was not anticipating relative to his script was how heavy they were going to come in the box, okay? How heavy they were going to be with their numbers in the front 7 and playing cover 0. They were expecting to see zone all day long. That's why it took a little time for the offense to figure things out all the way into the second half. Coach, it shouldn't take you that long to diagnose, oh, they zigged. We thought they were going to zag. And that applies to Williams in many ways too.
You said what I was going to say. The common denominator has been Javonte because, the run blocking wasn't up to par last season, but how is it McLaughlin can average over 6? A few weeks ago, Estimate was averaging over 6, Chad, and then you bring it. Tyler Beatty went off when against the Bucs earlier in the year. How come Javonte couldn't do that? They've shown flashes. Here's why, is because he's always had vision problems, but before the injury, he had some sort of athleticism and speed and power and ability to muscle through that, to overcome that. He lost that, and he's just 3 yards in a cloud of dust, or 0.8 yards now, as it were.
Well said. Pearl, what's going on? It's great to see you. If they make the playoffs, will they sing? I know it's an autocorrect, but I like that they're going to sing another running back. We'll sing it into existence. If you're like a Tolkien nerd, Lord of the Rings and all that stuff, the lore on that is like whatever the god is in that world, that universe, he sang into existence the world. It was like a musical thing. So that's what needs to happen here, Zach. She wants to know, though, if they make the playoffs, do they need to bring in another running back?
It's so tough to diagnose, Pearl. I'm not trying to be purposely vague here. It's the hot hand in the backfield. It's whoever Shawn Payton wants. It's matchup oriented and dictated based on who they're playing. Javonte, like I said, every time I think I'm out, he pulls me back in with some sort of hope, Chad. Like he goes right back to 2021 Javonte, and then he looks like 2022 and 2023, 2024, and so on. So I don't think they're going to bring anyone. We just have to hope that McLaughlin and Estimate, and if Bidet ever comes back, that they could be contributors.
Did Silvio die, you think, dude? Was that not clear?
No, he was in a coma.
It wasn't clear, right?
He was in a coma.
But it's not clear that killed him. Maybe he did, but you don't know. You don't ultimately know.
It's vague.
You know what's crazy? I read, I don't know how true it is. It's been a minute. I can't remember the perfect citation, but that actor, I forget his name, the dude from the E Street Band. What's his name?
Little Steven, what's his name?
Stevie something. That plays Silvio Dante. He was originally, that's who they were, that was going to be Tony. But then producers were like, yo, we need someone with more acting chops. And so they wanted Ray Liotta. And it didn't, he was trying to not be the gangster anymore. So then they're like, what about this hippie from New Jersey by the name of James Gandolfini? Brought him in, and he turned out to be the ace. But Pearl, I think they're in for a dime, in for a dollar on these running backs. They just got to figure out how to get something out of these guys now. GLP, brother, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Love you, bro. Seriously, this man goes hard. We've seen it with our own eyes, and it's always great to see you in the chat. He says, good to see you guys. I can't say enough that underestimating Shawn is our ace in the hole. Go Broncos.
It's true.
Yeah. And he's starting to kind of wield it, that swagger. So y'all doubted me on Russ. Y'all doubted me on Bo Nix. Y'all doubted me on Justin Simmons. Check out, hey, y'all heard that name, Brandon Jones. It's kind of cool to see because honestly, I never doubted Shawn Payton, to be frank with you. I knew it was just going to take a little time to turn this ship.
Yeah, he has that Conor McGregor strut to him now with the media, doesn't he, Chad? I mean, even today, he was asked if Bo Nix's arm has gotten stronger, and he goes, "No. What was it? Our pundits, have gotten weaker or something like that?"
I'll find it because it was a sick burn, dude. I'm gonna find it right now. It's like the last thing he said. No, second to last. Hey, coach.
Sorry, Chad. He goes, "No. Our pundits' eyes in the beginning were weaker."
Exactly. No, so hey, he goes, if the arm has Bo Nix's arm gotten any stronger? And then no. And then as Zach said, just kaboom. And you know what? Even guys, look, like Eric Trickle, who had his doubts about Bo Nix and misgivings, did the Broncos reach on him? Even guys, and Eric doesn't want to be right. He wants to be wrong on Bo Nix. He's, a Broncos fan after all. But even guys like him, he's waiting for the sample size to stack up. Zach today published an article, 3 reasons why the doubters, including himself, he puts himself in that, got it wrong on Bo Nix. And Shawn Payton, he's turning the knife a little bit. It's like, yeah, and you like that? And more power to him, dude. Hubris. The Rock says Payton said he needs to use Audric Estime more during his morning presser. There was a big, long thing about Audric Estime, Zach, at the top of his conference call. And Vele, which, by the way, Vele, dude, this kid is the real deal. Does Josh Reynolds get his starting job back as wide receiver too?
Probably because of cronyism, same way LGH still has a role with the team. Vele should be the number 2, but I think just seniority and the fact the Broncos gave Reynolds some guaranteed money, I think he'll end up starting there.
I hope not.
Same.
I hope not. I mean, you're playing with fire. Bo Nix, it's like you probably can't even remember this dude's name. I'm joking, but I'm not being that hyperbolic here. An NFL season, man, it feels like an eternity. And when you're in the muss and you're in the moment and you're battling and you build chemistry with the receiver and then he disappears, it hasn't just been for 4 weeks. He's been healthy, Josh Reynolds, practicing in full, in other words, 2 full weeks, and they haven't brought him from IR, practicing in full. So now you're looking at, Zach, 6 weeks of by the time he gets activated, you're going to be looking at almost 1 3/4 months. Meanwhile, Bo Nix has been making hay. He's been creating a phenomenal connection with Cortland and Vele. And then also you're seeing the other rookie, Troy Franklin, come alive. You're seeing Mims. I don't really want to screw that up too much. Like if you're going to move roles around, if you're going to maybe eat into Lil Jordan Humphreys, but not on the running downs because he is a good run blocker.
Very good point there, Chad, about not fixing what isn't broken. Bo Nix needs to throw to the guys that he is best connected with, and right now that seems like it's Vele. And I don't know, I mean, starting, it's all formalities with titles and everything. I just feel like when Reynolds does come back, they're going to try to shoehorn him in to some sort of role as a primary pass catcher. I just hope Shawn Payton, what he said about Vele today, comparing him to Marcus Colston from the Saints, a legendary 7th-round pick, just like Vele was. I hope they can continue building that rapport up.
Yeah, and Colston, man, how many? I'm trying to remember. That dude was like a perennial Pro Bowler with Breeze. How many total? Oh, really? No, I'm tripping. He didn't get the Pro Bowls. Zach, could that be? I don't remember him never getting. Maybe I'm tripping. Hold on a second. Doesn't show he ever got a Pro Bowl. Hold on. I got to check his stats real fast.
Damn good receiver, though.
No, go back. Stats. There we go. Okay. It was 1,000-yard season after another, Zach. I mean, literally, he finished with as many receiving yards basically as Demaryius Thomas. in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons. Didn't Demarius play 10 or was it only 9? Either way, that dude was legit. So yeah, if you're getting compared to a guy who had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 yard seasons and then 2 where he just came barely short, and you're 11 games, whatever it is now, 12 games into your career, that's a good harbinger. Ralph says on Facebook, I'm a smelling the playoffs. I am too. And NFL.com, in case you missed it, Ralph, giving the Broncos a 73% probability for making the playoffs. They're currently a 2-game lead in the 7th seed over the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, I am definitely smelling what the Broncos are cooking. I saw ESPN's Football Power Index, the projections for the Broncos, which has been kind of on the conservative side. Not surprising considering the source, but they're up to 66% now, the Broncos making the playoffs as it stands. So exciting times we're in, Ralph.
And just for what it's worth, here's a quick snapshot at the Dolphins' next few games. They've got on the road at Green Bay, week 13. That's this Thursday. Then they get a little bit of a break in the Jets at home. Then they got to go on the road to the Texans. Then they're at home against the Niners. Then they go on the road to Cleveland. Then they close out again at the Jets. So, there's a couple of take it easy type of games there, Zach, but Cleveland on the road won't be easy. I'm telling you. Cleveland at home, different story. Playing Cleveland on the road at literally the end of December. Plus, you got the Niners, you got the Texans, and you got the Packers. It's not looking good for the Dolphins being that team that finds a way to usurp the Broncos at the 7th seed.
And also the Jets. I'm not overlooking a divisional matchup, but that could be the Jets Super Bowl spoiling the Dolphins season. They have nothing left to play for at this point. They're going to throw the kitchen sink in that game. So I'm not worried about Miami. Like I said, they're a paper tiger. Broncos just have to focus on who's in front of them.
And a good point from Scott. The Dolphins have never done well in the ice and the snow. So, yeah, Dolphins in Cleveland. That's going to be harsh. That's going to be fish out of water. You know what I'm saying? Okay, we're at about 32 minutes. We're doing good with time, but I'm going to take a second and I'm going to examine the chat and grab someone here like Leroy on Facebook, one of our longtime listeners, saying, me during the bye week, I would work Blake Watson into the offense. Javonte Williams would just be a third down back or less. What do you guys think? I'm not opposed to the idea of any of that stuff, but I think that bye week has to be, first of all, began with a deep dive self-scouting diagnosis of what the Sam Hill's going wrong with our run game. And then relative to play time, Javonte has to be relegated to that third down back. And it's got to be Audric Estime. The 1-2 punch for now has to be Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin. And if there's still enough room, Zach, for bites at the apple for a Blake Watson, great. If not, he's your kind of ace in the hole in case one of your guys gets hurt amongst the top 3 there. But Audric Estime has so far, and I'm knocking on wood as I say this, ever since he kind of got humiliated and run through the rookie grinder, having to carry a ball around the facility for a week and a half, his ball security has been on point, and he just has that pop and he has that vision. He's jumping over dudes. It's like Javonte, Zach, had he never suffered that brutal injury.
What do I think about Blake Watson? Sure, Leroy. I mean, at this point, I'll try you at running back. I'll try Chad or Scott or myself. It doesn't matter as long as we can make yards, as long as we can gain more than 0.8 or whatever Javonte finished with. That would be more effective than just running into the backs of your blockers. So if Blake Watson can be the one to give him that spark plug, so be it. I don't care at this point.
That there is the franchise. That's Floyd Little, the late Floyd Little signature. This was bequeathed to me as a gift from the great Doc Bear.
Be nice to have him right now.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Okay. Phil, what's the latest on Moss and Allen? I'm glad you asked. I didn't see Payton readdress it this morning, Zach Moss, but he did say after the game yesterday, basically, that looks like we dodged a bullet. It's an MCL, nothing too heinous. We were actually going to maybe put him back in the game, but just didn't. So we'll know more this week type of thing, but like he's going to be okay is the general vibe that he was saying, Zach. And then you had the article for us today on Zach Allen.
Basically the same thing about Zach Allen. Shawn Payton wouldn't offer much as usual, but he goes, we should be fine there in regard to Allen's injury. Allen has a heel that he suffered last Friday. On Sunday, he was inactive. He had a walking boot on, caused a lot of panic. Broncos weren't as good without him, but fortunately, he should be okay moving forward. Bullets dodged.
Hey, look at this, Scott. You're getting some props here from Ralph. I just finished listening to Broncos for breakfast. I really appreciate Nick and Scott. Unfortunately, I have a job and seldomly catch them live, but always catch them on Apple Pods. Hey, bro, however you're listening to MHH podcasts, including our great morning show, we appreciate that. And I know Nick and Scott appreciate the kind words because they do a great job. Okay, let me see what else here is in the chat that we might have missed. I know for the most part, Zach, we've kind of landed on the majority of the news. And, people say, well, what about Parham? What about Parham? Shiloh, what's good, dude? Where you been? What have you been up to? Do you really think that's a solution, Zach? The dude chilling on practice, is he going to come save the day?
Is Blake Watson a solution at running back? At this point, the positions are so bare. It's like anyone, I'm willing to give anyone a shot. I happen to like some of the players in the tight end room more than I like some of the players in the Broncos running back room, but besides the point there. I would like Parham to be given a shot just because of his size. He's like 6'8", Chad. I mean, for red zone alone, just throw him up the ball, see what he can do.
Yeah, dude. It'll be interesting to see. I think it's also with how they've had to make do at tight end. They've kind of paired the offense into a specific shape that, they can get by with what they have, I think is Shawn Payton's thinking, between the trio of Troutman, Kroll, and Adkins. And, they've had some production over the last few weeks of touchdowns. I mean, we remember it's been a minute now, Zach, but National Tight End Day, Adkins caught one against the Falcons. And, I think they're just like, hey, that's not our strength this year. We'll figure out how to make it a strength next year.
Sometimes that's like a good thing for a young ascending team like this, is to not have the superstar at every position and kind of have to force to grow with the younger Jag type players. If it works, I'm fine with it.
That's an excellent point. And I think it doesn't get talked about enough is, seeing how the team is growing around and with Bo Nix. And I think the old cliche or maxim, I mean, they become cliches, Zach, and maxims for a reason. And that's because they're true, that a true franchise quarterback is the tide that raises all ships. You're seeing that. You're seeing Sutton come back to life. You're seeing Bailey, a guy who by rights as a 7th round pick, was there a receiver drafted after Vele in this class? You're seeing them rise. You're seeing him bring them up to a new level. You're seeing an offensive line really start to gel. And, if they can avoid some of the stupid penalties like McGlinchey, et cetera, yesterday, don't get me started. But this team is coming together without this top-heavy contracts of this free agent and that free agent. We're loaded for bear. This is a dream team. No, they're growing it and they're finding their way the hard way, Zach. And it's working early, and almost nobody expected that. That's why people in Broncos country right now are so excited. Eric, your thoughts, and then we'll get Eric.
I just wanted to say that's why your point about Reynolds from earlier was so astute, because it's working right now with Vele. And why try to shoehorn a veteran, more expensive player in when you have that young nucleus starting to form? So I'm right there with you, partner.
Eric Flynn just saw that the main page stream wasn't working. Yeah, sorry, buddy. It's one of those days again. StreamYard still hasn't figured that out. Hoping we make some noise in the playoffs. Everything at this point this season is a bonus. I mean, you never give up the pursuit of making the playoff tournament. But, Zach, I was always hopeful and optimistic that they could at least be in the conversation down the stretch. But for me, it was still like, hey, do we see massive signs from Bo Nix? And if you do, it probably means, Zach, that you're going to be in that conversation late. And boy, oh boy, I got to tell you, like Bo Nix I was one of those guys that was down for Nix, right? I was excited the Broncos got Nix. So were you, Zach.
Yes, sir.
but he's exceeded my expectations for his first 12 games. Like, I figured, yeah, he might be like a dark horse to be in the ORoY conversation, but you're battling against those top 3 guys, and the media is going to always confirmation bias of the fact that they're top 3 picks. They're always going to go that way. And he is just obliterating them all, including Jaden Daniels marginally, at least the last few games. Read Nick's article tonight that he published right before we went live on the Offensive Rookie of the Year odds thing with Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, and you'll really get a stronger appreciation for how Bo Nix has weathered his rookie year.
I didn't even have a thought in my mind about ORoY when the Broncos drafted him. That didn't even enter my mind until the last couple weeks or so. I thought it might be 7-10, 8-9, rebuilding, developmental type season, Chad, and we have an answer for the most part that Bo Nix is the guy going forward. And that's why I'm saying now, if the Broncos make the playoffs, the wild card round, they get blown out 42-0, that is still a resounding success for 2024, because no one, myself included, I'm admitting that, thought the Broncos would sneak in year one with Bo Nix, a guy that was rated the 6th best quarterback, couldn't throw downfield, couldn't do this, couldn't do that, Shawn Payton washed, all this stuff. So if they make the playoffs, regardless of what happens from that point forward, the season is a massive, massive win.
By the way, isn't John the older Harbaugh?
Yes.
Isn't Jim little, bro?
Yeah, I believe.
Why does John look 8 years younger than Jim then? How do you explain that?
NCAA scandals.
Perhaps that has taken some years off old Jim's life, you think, huh? John's he's been a pretty straight and narrow boy for the most part, right? Since he's been a famous name and an NFL head coach. Man, he's such a good coach. Both of them are.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, dude, with Herbert is going to be a problem for us, almost on a level of Mahomes and Reed. In fact, if there's any hope, Zach, it's that beyond what we can control, it's that Andy Reid, maybe he goes away pretty soon. Maybe he finally hangs it up. And I'll bite my tongue as I say it, they win 3 in a row, he'll retire. If they don't, what happens?
Life goes on. I'm not worried about the Chargers are still going to be the Chargers, chat. They're still going to blow it in some fashion at the end of the day. We can count on it. We can set our watch to it. And as long as the Broncos have Bo Nix playing as well as he has, and Shawn Payton, he can go toe-to-toe with Jim Harbaugh. He can go toe-to-toe with – he beat Andy Reid last season, Chad. He should have beat him this year. So as well as they're playing, the Broncos can stack up against anyone. Bring them on.
By the way, Mr. Producer's saying if we're talking about, exceeding expectations and being surprised, he says the Broncos defense to him is a bigger surprise than Bo Nix. Nix, a top 10 quarterback, or the Broncos being a top 3 defense? I mean, well, I hear what you're saying, but with how well that defense played from like week 5 on last year, I'm not as surprised. Like there was, and they had some losses. You lost Justin Simmons, you lost Josie Jewell. There were some veteran exodus, but Nix to me is, maybe it's just because it's all the more pleasant. I mean, not to say that having a top 3 defense, Zach, is not a pleasant development, but when so much is pinned on the outlook and the development of a first round quarterback, man, just feels good when it comes to fruition.
What surprised me about the defense is it hasn't fallen apart yet. Like you said, they went on that stretch run, but this year they seem like they're a top 5 defense consistently, not just for one game, not in a disappearing actor, a genuine product.
Well, and that goes back to like what you were saying earlier about the team kind of doing it the old-fashioned way and figuring out how to play together without superstars at every level and having to grow and learn and develop and coalesce and all that stuff. That's possibly, Zach, even more apparent from what we've seen on the defense to Scott's points here. Patrick Surtain and maybe you could throw in Zach Allen were the only names anybody outside of Denver knew. And now people know Brandon Jones. They know Nick Bonito. You can maybe throw in Jonathan Cooper, but at the very least, Nick Bonito. Alex Singleton before he got hurt. Cody Barton's been on a little bit of he's kind of spurty, but they're just out kicking their coverage. Gary, brother, thank you for your second super chat of the night. You are indeed MHH family and a Mount Rushmore super chat superstar to us. You know this. He says, I honestly think the QB coach combo thing is more important than the stats. MHH for life.
Another one Chad had mentioned is Riley Moss. Like, he's going to become a household name soon, and arguably one of the best cornerback duos along with PS2 in the NFL. And Gary, to your point and to what we were talking about, it's not just one thing. It's not just one player. It's not just one factor. Shawn Payton talked about this. He goes, it was picking up a Brandon Jones. It was picking up a Malcolm Roach. It was picking up a JFM. It was picking up Bo Nix. It was all of these forces coalescing at once to give you what we're seeing now, which is a really good football product.
And as KB brings up here, don't forget John Franklin Myers, which I agree in terms of his impact. He hasn't been quite productive enough to become one of those household names like we're talking about. But baby, he has been one of those glue guys. Shawn Payton was talking about that today too. The unexpected glue guys that, you know, there's no way for them to possibly perceive it. But I'm just going to read this real quick, Zach. It's worth it. It's worth mentioning it here as we get close to the end. This is your 2-minute warning for any burning super chats or questions. On the key changes that made this team tougher than the one last year. Shawn Payton today, quote, there's probably 9 different guys like Malcolm Roach that bring this chemistry. It's addition and subtraction. It's not your sexy story about one quarterback or the other. That's not the narrative here. It's not, in other words, Bo Nix is better than Russell Wilson. That's not the story at all. It's a number of different changes. A new draft class, a Brandon Jones, a John Franklin Myers, Malcolm Roach, list goes on and on. Sometimes as a coach, you're not certain as to when they're making the moves, who's the most important one, or if there was a most important one. Then it was moving on, and you know, with the changes, you have a different team. It's not at all a one position discussion, meaning it's not just about the quarterback. It's just a different team, close quote, Zach. And I think that really illustrates Brandon Jones, John Franklin Myers, Malcolm Roach. Just that trio alone goes a long way toward explaining why this defense is a top 3 unit.
Something those players all have in common is tenacity. They have attitude. They have personality. They have vigor. These were all qualities the Broncos defense was lacking last year and in recent years. They didn't have that dog. They didn't, especially up front, the D-line. They were just getting bullied constantly every game. Now, no more. You talk about JFM. You ask any Jets fan on Twitter, and they would kill to get JFM back. He is criminally underrated, and the Broncos got him for a song. People should be talking about that more, what George Payton did, Chad.
Agreed. Ronk checking in. Great show tonight, Chad and Zach on the MHH podcast. Aftermath, go Bo Broncos. Thank you, brother, for being there every single night. We love you, big dog. And I'll grab this one. Here's our Hail Mary. We'll probably close out of here with this one.
Good afternoon.
Glenn. Good afternoon, Priest and Deacon Scott from Melbourne, Australia. Great win yesterday, gritty but effective. Our development has really fast-tracked a year ahead of where I thought we would be. Hashtag Bo Leave, hashtag state of being, hashtag Denver Broncos for life. Yeah, it's funny, you know, Zach, that little catchphrase that Broncos Country is not a geographic location, it's a state of being. Like many of the things we say when we're spending hours and hours every week talking off the top of our head on a microphone, you know, every once in a while something sticks that people latch onto. And I don't know, what do you want to call it? A catchphrase. And that one is one of them because it's really interesting. You would think, like when you're talking to advertisers, for example, you'd go, oh, okay, this podcast that has a huge reach and a huge listenership covering a specific team in a specific market, you would assume that the vast majority of people listening, subscribing, interacting with the podcast, streaming, donating, all these things would be Denver people, or at the very least Colorado people. And I'll tell you, it's about 50-50. About half the audience is Colorado landlocked. Zach, the rest is worldwide. And it's all those members of Broncos Country who are not in the market that really help to take our community over the top. That's why it's not a geographic location. It's a state of being, baby. It's wherever you are. And this cat, Glenn, he's in Oz.
Yeah, I mean, at the meet and greets, Chad, we've had fans come from literally every corner of the country and even out of the country to come kick it about the Broncos. I just looked it up. It's 1:01 p.m. on Tuesday in Melbourne for Glenn right now. So have a good Tuesday, Glenn, from the future.
Hey, when I X out of this comment, I'm going to send you, Glenn, Back to the Future. Much love and respect, bro. As Ronk says, God, family, and the Denver Broncos. That's a Garrett Bowles-ism, if I'm not mistaken.
That's all
Which,
you
by
need.
the way, did you see Ballsy blowing up Nix's post game? Well, best rookie in the class, baby. Woo! You know, like stoked, man. I'm happy for Ballsy. And I hope that, I honestly really do hope, as we close out of here, that this is not Bowles' only ride with Bo Nix. I hope they find a way to get things figured out.
Yeah, he deserves some happiness. It's better than seeing him cry by his locker like he did a few months ago. So one of those old tenured Broncos that deserves that taste of winning, Chad, of
Was that
success.
after the Steelers loss? What I'm trying to remember.
I'm not sure.
I think it was.
That was the last like down period of the season anyway, for the most part.
Because it wasn't looking good, right? Like it was like,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, we were there for that Steelers game. It was like, really, Bo? What the heck? Sean, take the handcuffs off this kid. Let him go out and throw it around a little bit.
0-2, no hope.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, hey, and pardon me. When the Broncos make the playoffs this year, Zach, they'll become one of those very few elite teams to start 0-2 and still make the playoffs, proving the probabilities are just that. They're just a metric. They can be overcome.
That's right. I love that. I love the when and not if from you, Chad, the confidence. That's going to do it, I think, though, for tonight's episode of the Aftermath MHH podcast. If you're not doing so, please give us a follow at the MHH pod. You can also follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You can follow Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, please, 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 very important that you subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Hey, real quick, this is true. I think Bo Nix has to be named Rookie of the Month in November. So you're talking about a rookie quarterback relative to the ORoY odds, Zach, who is probably going to be a back-to-back in October and November, Rookie of the Month. He'll probably go on to do that in December. Like, just give him the award by the time it's all said and done. It's going to happen. Okay, that's it. Yeah, we'll get in more into Pro Bowlers maybe later this week. But yeah, Lutz, it's looking like he should be considered for the Pro Bowl anyway. Dixon, perhaps. We'll see. But good points there, my friend. And yeah, KB, I don't want to leave KB out in the cold. How excited are you that John Franklin Myers is only 1 sack short of his career high with 5 games to go? Dude, I'm just excited. He's a Bronco.
Yeah.
He's become a force to be reckoned with. Yesterday in Vegas, he didn't get a sack, but he was a big reason they were able to overcome the loss of Zach Allen. So, all right, a mile high salute and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters tonight, helping us keep the lights on, like the Papa Bear, David McElrath, Sam Bam, legend. Cullen, thank you, bro. It's been great seeing you more and more in the chat. You are becoming a bona fide Super Chat superstar, and as well as Proud Zennial 81. The Ronk, legend. Phil McLaughlin, legend. Kyle Evans, he's coming up too. Love it, dude. Gary, Mount Rushmore, legend. Ralph's coming up. Eric Flynn's coming up. And that covers everybody tonight. So love you guys. Have a great start to your week. Can't wait to do this again Thursday night. But we kind of have a weird schedule this week relative to the podcast because we go Thursday night, Zach, and then we'll go Sunday, but not as a gut reaction because we'll be going late Monday night for the gut reaction. It's going to be a fun week, but an extra day will make it feel a little bit longer than usual, but we'll be here the whole time.
Yes, sir. Have a great start to your week, everybody. We'll see you later on. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.